Hi, everyone.
Hey everyone. Welcome,
Hello.
welcome.
I'm
Hello.
going to say that.
Hello.
Hey,
Hey, hi,
hey.
Rob.
Hi
Hello.
there.
I see some familiar faces and some faces I don't yet know, which is also beautiful. I love watching our community grow. So beautiful to see you all.
Chelsea, love
It's nice to be here today.
Awesome. All right. So
Okay, we're going to pin you to the top.
I'm getting pinned to the top.
Hold on. There
Exciting.
we go.
Oh, there I am. Hi everyone. It is so amazing to be here with you. I'm really so appreciative of this opportunity to that Eric and Jillian have bestowed upon me on this day, so I could be with you and share some thoughts. This is live and learn, so let's live and learn together, shall we? I think that's a marvelous idea. So I'm just gonna wait a few moments and let everybody wander on through the door, as they say. So if you all can open up your chat, feel free. I know some of you have been together many times before, but it might be nice just to type in where you're from. I love getting a chance to see just how widespread this community is. So feel free to do that and let the rest of the group know just how international we are as a group. Okay, so I see Vancouver, Canada, Italy, Portland, Oregon, LA, Michigan, Germany, Indiana, Sweden. This is what Czech Republic. This is what I'm talking about, folks. This is a community. This is a global community, and don't ever forget how special that is, that we are so deeply connected despite what one would consider distance and separation around this globe. We are in fact so intimately connected, and I love watching these countries and cities show up on the screen, because I think it's just great validation for the growing community that is the RLC and our Reconnective Healing family. It's fantastic, and I know a lot of these names, so I'm so excited to see old friends, new friends, and everyone else in between. So thank you. And people are still walking through the door. My name is Rob Koenig, by the way, if you didn't know that by now. And I am a proud member of our Reconnective Healing community, and I have been now for several years. It feels like a lifetime, but in fact, it's only been 7 years since I stepped into the world of Reconnective Healing. And so just so you all know, I'm a mentor, associate instructor of Reconnective Healing, and for the last few years, I've served as the co-director for the international team, alongside my dear friend and colleague Guglielmo Poli in Italy. So the two of us have had the distinct honor of stepping into a leadership role within this community and getting a chance to guide and support and expand the reach of reconnective healing around the world. And we've done that in many ways. Of course, the expansion of our Catalyst programs, which is our live immersion programs that Guglielmo and I have been looking to expand and grow throughout the international scene, and we continue to set that as a major goal. But also expanding different online course offerings like Living in the Frequencies that I've been proud to co-create with Kelly Woodruff, as many of you know, and Joan Fowler. So that continues to be another wonderful vehicle for expansion and access to the Reconnective Healing Experience. And also very near and dear to my heart is the process of expanding our leadership around the world. And that is the creation of ambassadors and mentors of reconnective healing. And some of whom are on this call right now. So I'm glad to see some of you are here with me. And it's really important to recognize that that our mission as an organization is to make sure that this awareness is is as accessible as we can possibly make it to those around the world. And that is an incredibly important goal of mine. And I'm proud to be a part of that expansion. So just a little bit more about myself. Professionally, I have worked as a school psychologist for many years, more years than I'd like to admit because it gives away how old I am. But I've been in the school system serving as a psychologist for well over 2 decades, and in the last 4 or 5 years, I've expanded my professional horizon by co-creating and co-owning a holistic wellness center here in New York, where I am. And in fact, I am broadcasting live right now from the Holistic Center for Soulful Living, which is my center here in Long Island, New York. So, and welcome. This is actually my Reconnective Healing session room that I am broadcasting from. So I thought, what better place to have this conversation, but in a space that where I am interacting with these frequencies every week. So yes, it's such an honor and privilege to be with you. And what I want to do first also is recognize that gatherings like these in the RLC community are so important to create community for like-minded individuals who are wishing to evolve and really raise the vibration and the consciousness on this planet. And surely Reconnective Healing, and listen to this, because I believe it to be true, Reconnective Healing was positioned perfectly in our human timeline to assist us with the mission of raising the vibration on this planet. Obviously, we're all aware of the tumultuous times that we are living through as humanity right now, and the fact that Reconnective Healing took root within this time period, within the last few decades, it's no accident. It is here to help us through these times and to help us grow and to reach the other side of the chaos that we might observe around us. And so for those of you who have been on this journey with us for maybe years, I hope that this conversation today serves to perhaps inspire a fresh perspective on the core elements of the Reconnective Healing Experience, and perhaps also remind us what it's always been about. And for those of you who are new to the Reconnective Healing journey, I am thrilled, first of all, to welcome you to the ride. It is a ride. Everyone who has been on their Reconnective Healing journey for a while knows that it's quite a voyage through conscious exploration of our human potential. And so I wish to give those of you who are new to this journey offer some new insight, perhaps, into the depth in which Reconnective Healing permeates our life. Hey everyone, Rob Koenig here, co-director for the Reconnection, inviting you all to the next Catalyst Weekend event scheduled on January 15th and 16th in beautiful Southern California. This is your opportunity to bring the Reconnective Healing Experience into your life on a deep and personal level. Throughout the weekend, we will explore many ways in which you can expand your awareness and truly recognize what it means to reconnect with your full potential. I can't think of a better way to start 2022. We look forward to seeing you all there. It's really important to recognize just how expansive it is. So today, I'm going to share with you some of my revelations and discoveries that I've made along my own personal journey in the hopes that I can offer an expanded perspective for you to contemplate. And, you know, it's always fascinating to me to learn about the intersection between someone's life path and that point where Reconnective Healing shows up. We all have a story, and for me, you know, it's always meaningful when we reflect on why it showed up when it did. Because for me, it came in a moment in my life where, in all conventional terms, things were going well. I wasn't in crisis. I wasn't struggling or suffering, but I had reached a point in my life where, when I looked around, I felt that my life was incredibly ordinary, and I felt a gaping hole and this strong sense that I was missing greater meaning and purpose in my life. And I really started to say to myself, is this it? Is this all there is? Is there anything more that I am supposed to experience? Is there anything more that I am supposed to be aware of and that I'm supposed to bring into my life experience? And then I discovered reconnective healing. Well, actually, Dr. Eric likes to say that he discovered reconnective healing, which he did, by the way. But but every time I say when I discovered reconnective healing, he likes to correct me and say, no, I discovered reconnective healing. But I digress. But when reconnective healing entered my life, it really shattered the limitations that I had constructed around my understanding of the universe and also my understanding of the human experience itself. Because that's exactly what happened. And I can honestly tell you that from the day that I left my reconnective healing training, from that day till now, I have spent thousands of hours contemplating my discoveries, wondering, marveling, questioning, and ultimately settling into a knowingness that continues to evolve. So I ask you this question: is knowingness a final stop along our learning journey, or can it also coexist with expansion, evolution, and continual growth? I just want you to contemplate that. We're gonna, if we have time at the end, I'd love to open it up for questions and discussion, but I have so much I want to share with you today. So I just want to, again, put that out there. Is knowingness a final stop is it a finality of now I have arrived, or does it coexist with expansion and evolution? I'll tell you for myself, knowingness is a return to clarity. It's an inner certainty within our core. However, it's also a point from which we can invite new insights and awareness. We can experience moments of knowingness throughout our lives. And, over the last 7 years, as I've worked alongside Dr. Eric and Jillian, I look at their journey and I recognize and I marvel at the fact that they continue to expand in their growth and their depth of awareness, emerging through their own discoveries. And I think that's really what it's all about. It's true that there are core elements in our understanding of reconnective healing that have remained over the years. But the facets of this beautiful diamond that we consider the reconnective healing experience continues to become polished. It continues to reveal itself. And it gives us a growing appreciation for the gifts that reconnective healing can offer us in our lives. And, what's interesting is that in reconnective healing, there are really fundamental concepts that speak to a life philosophy. So we're going to start there. And I want to first bring your attention to the fact that when we often look to define reconnective healing, you often hear conversations comparing it to other energy healing practices. We compare it to Reiki, we compare it to Qigong, we compare it to this or that. But when we make those comparisons, we're often missing one of the most fundamental distinctions, and that is reconnective healing far beyond a healing interaction or exchange or an offering of an interaction. It is a state of being. It is a consciousness, and it's an awareness that permeates everything about our lives. It takes us far beyond the traditional notion of a healing exchange. And now, granted, when we try to, and when we look to apply reconnective healing in a more conventional way as a healing practice, of course, it can be accomplished, and we can offer it in that three-way exchange that we know of between facilitator, client, and the reconnective healing frequencies themselves. And yes, it opens up doors and opportunities for a return to balance, a return to harmony, and it does offer us opportunities for increased well-being on all levels of our existence. However, in today's discussion, I really want to focus on how reconnective healing has evolved into a philosophy of living and interacting within this world. It is a philosophy that can be applied and experienced throughout every moment of our lives. It's an expanded awareness of ourselves and how we fit into the larger context of existence. So you may be familiar with this notion, this cliche, that where I got the title of this presentation from, this cliche of all I ever needed to know, I learned in kindergarten. And if you're familiar with this concept, the idea was that it's kind of a silly way to kind of, but profound all at the same time, to think of life in that to really contemplate the successful life of citizenship and being a productive, successful member of society, that one only needs to go back to those early childhood lessons of kindness, decency, respect, sharing. These simple basic concepts were our guiding principles for human living. But when I was preparing for this discussion today, I recognized that I wanted to share with you the fundamental guiding principles of reconnective healing philosophy that have dramatically influenced my life and the lives of so many. And in doing so, I really recognize that these principles are, in fact, all we really need to know to experience a life of joy, fulfillment, and enrichment. It is such an amazingly profound realization that came naturally from my interaction. So we're going to jump into some of these core philosophical components, and I want to explore them with you together so we can reflect on just how profound they can be in our understanding of how we could show up in our lives. And so I want to start with the first concept now, the concept of we are inherently whole. This is something that you will hear discussed in reconnective healing circles, and it is a fundamental concept, and it's based on the understanding that lack and limitation are self-imposed illusions, and true healing arises when we reconnect to the essence of our wholeness. You know, when we acknowledge our own wholeness, we become the mirror for others to see themselves through our eyes. And it is true that it is how we approach the Reconnective Healing Exchange when we're offering Reconnective Healing professionally. Instead of viewing our clients who come in to experience Reconnective Healing, instead of viewing them as less than whole or needing to be fixed, or looking at them as possessing limitations that we are there to improve, we behold them instead as their true essence of being whole, and we start to behold them beyond the perceived limitations that maybe they hold within themselves or that we might hold for them, and we allow this new expanded consciousness to become the dominant vibration of the experience. So how do we reinforce and validate our own perception of wholeness? Well, it has to do with really removing our reliance on anything external to who we are. So when we think about our wholeness and we think about, really who are we as whole, we start to recognize that as we really release the need to introduce external aids, objects, rituals, techniques, and yes, even others to make us more or to enhance who we are, we start to recognize that we experience that wholeness, and it begins to really enhance our understanding of what that concept really means. And what's interesting for me as a psychologist, I am fully aware that our perceptions of wholeness and self-worth really lie within this concept of how we are allowing ourselves to view ourselves within the context of our lives, and this brings me right into the concept of worthiness. And when we think about worthiness, as a psychologist, like I said, I recognize that self-worth, our perception of self-worth and life meaning often influence the quality of our life experience. And through reconnective healing, we are shown that we can transcend our life story, and we could really step outside of these outdated definitions of limitations and truly know freedom from the consciousness of lack and insignificance. And so we know that when we experience reconnective healing with one another. And as a professional offering reconnective healing, we get to hear the reflections that come back to us as someone has stepped into their reconnective healing experience. We often hear that the things that are being shared really commonly revolve around themes of people stepping into their recognition that they are enough and that they matter, and that these are really important concepts that just naturally arise from the interaction. So I think it's really important that we recognize that what would this world look like if we all started to view ourselves as whole and limitless and worthy? What would it look like in this world if we began to look at our neighbors as whole and limitless and worthy? So what's so amazing to me is that these are realizations that naturally evolve through the time that we share and spend in the Reconnective Healing exchange or experience. And it's something that someone doesn't have to teach it to you. They don't have to show it to you. It arises most naturally. So let's just stay on the concept of worthiness for a moment, because one of the other aspects of worthiness that naturally evolves through reconnective healing is that our mastery does not need to be earned, and we are all equals with gifts to offer this world, regardless of our background, regardless of our education. And I want to dive into this a little bit deeper.
What is a portal? It's a doorway to transformation.
It's an expansion of our online essentials, our level 1, an 8+ hour e-learning course.
The portal helps us discover our roadblocks that may be stopping us from living our fullest potential.
How does the portal help bring about these benefits? Easy to follow short segments with interactive exercises, information acquired not only through the mind, but through interaction with the frequencies themselves. It includes the 8 hours of the online essentials course,
2 key chapters, one on love and one on healing, from the new series, The Inner Compass. It brings the possibility for instant transformation, healing, and the evolution of each and every one of us.
So, let's get back to worthiness for a moment. I talked about the fact that one of the gifts of our awareness that comes through reconnective healing is this concept that we transcend our background. We don't need to have a certain foundation, whether it's education, whether it's life experience, whether it's age. We could be 8 years old or we could be 80 years old, and we could recognize that this is accessible to us. And when we observe, as those of us who have taught and have shared in the training process of reconnective healing, we know that the newcomers to reconnective healing get to experience a level of knowingness and access, regardless of it being their first day or their 50th day or 3rd year or 5th year. It's something so remarkable that helps validate this concept that we are in fact worthy because we exist. And when I think about life lessons and the gifts that we give ourselves through this experience, that's a big one. That's a big one. You know, recognizing through our interactions that we actually have the capacity to know our wholeness and our worthiness through this very simple but very profound experience is a gift that is always worth giving to ourselves and to others. So we have the idea of wholeness, we have the idea of worthiness, and then we have this fundamental concept of interconnectivity. We know that reconnective healing is here to teach us that we are connected to everyone and everything. It is here to confirm for us and validate for us that separation is an illusion and that we exist beyond the limits of time and space. And it really is based on the cutting edge concepts in quantum science and quantum physics, where we talk about the holographic universe. And for those of you not familiar with that concept, there's this very real, very measurable concept of a hologram, where you take a whole, and when you divide that whole into its parts, each new part is a representation of the whole. And we can think of very basic examples in our environment. You can take the example of the sun's light, and you look at the sun as an entity, as an energetic star, and then you look at the light that beams and emanates from the sun, and you realize that every ray of sun is a representation, a manifestation of the sun itself. Or if you look at the ocean and you take a drop of water from that ocean, each drop of water represents the whole. It contains everything within that ocean. And reconnective healing is validating for us that we are so interconnected. We come from this wholeness that we are all a part of. And when we bring that awareness into our everyday lives, we recognize that that means that we are all fundamentally connected. So we are, in fact, mirrors to each other. We reflect the truth of our existence outward to the world. And when we look upon someone else, they are mirrors for us as well. And we see this as we interact and entrain with the frequencies of reconnective healing, that as we experience our sense of connectivity, that those interacting with us naturally experience it themselves. There's this concept in spirituality of, know thyself. And many have asserted that we come from this wholeness, and we travel into duality of time and space to truly know thyself. And we do that by coming here, I believe, and experiencing the duality and the separation of time and space, and then transcend it so we can re-emerge into that awareness of connectivity and wholeness. And just imagine how different this world would appear if we all looked at each other as extensions of ourselves. And again, you'll notice that as we go through these concepts, wholeness, worthiness, connectivity, that they're also intertwined, that one validates the other. When we experience our connections to others, it validates our sense of wholeness. When we experience ourselves as whole, it validates how worthy and how significant we are in our existence, right here and right now. So it's really, for me, so critically important that we step into our awareness of what is showing up for us. And if you're a part of this RLC community, you will have continued insights and moments of knowingness that are reflected back to you. And what's so interesting for me is when I think about my journey into reconnective healing, I didn't pursue reconnective healing because I wanted to establish a new norm, a new normal for my definition of life and my definition of existence. I was really just very curious about the idea of expanding human potential, and I wanted to know what we were capable of in the way of healing. As a psychologist, I was always very interested in the concept of how we could improve the quality of life of others, and I never expected that it was going to offer me such an expanded life perspective that I bring with me into every moment. And so that's really core and central to the concept of our discussion today, is how are these reconnective healing philosophical insights guiding us and serving as markers to remind us who we are and how we can experience a more fulfilling lifetime. And so let me move on to the next area. And I know that you've probably talked about this if you've been part of the RLC community, this concept of being love. Again, this is a concept that doesn't need to be taught to you through an instructor's offering. It's not something that we teach people to learn. It's something that we experience. And the art of being love is truly the freedom from being tethered to changing conditions. Because when we think about the traditional notion of loving or feeling love, there's often an arc to that process that often involves some type of an exchange or an interaction where there are some conditions where I feel love because, and there are reasons that we can attribute. If you say to someone, why do you love that person or love that thing? Often there is an explanation, and we can cite examples of why that person gives us a sense of love. But what we find with this amazing reconnective healing environment is that it is a transformative state of consciousness that arises naturally, and we recognize this natural vibration of love that is unconditional and not tethered to outer circumstance. So instead of we love because, we notice that we are simply loving. We are becoming the essence of love. And I'll give you some examples of how this shows up. And for me, it's that profound sense of love that I have witnessed time and time again. And I know those of you who practice reconnective healing and have offered it in the traditional sense of maybe doing a session for someone, a traditional healing session with reconnective healing frequencies, you notice that that experience of love just arises naturally, and it tends to transcend the conventional notion of why love would arise. Because very often when we get to interact with someone through reconnective healing, very often it could be a stranger, and often it is a stranger that we don't know. And we start to experience this opening of our heart, and we get to experience this profound, deep sense of love within us as we interact within these frequencies with someone else. And we recognize, where is this coming from? This person that I am sharing this experience with hasn't given me rationale or reason to be loving. They haven't given me reasons that I would attribute to wanting to share love, but it arises, and it arises naturally. And I think that's a really profound realization that I know that I've made in my observations, and I know many others have as well. And it's and I think of other examples. Way back when I began my reconnective healing journey, and I showed up at the Reconnective Healing Training Program back in Toronto, Canada in 2013. I remember reflecting on how incredibly warm, gracious, and loving the people of Toronto were. and then it dawned on me as I got to know more about reconnective healing and this experience that, listen, I'm sure the people of Toronto are naturally wonderful people, but my observation and my experience of feeling that love within me was not coming from anything that they were doing or they were saying. It was that they were reflecting back to me as mirrors this new state of being that I had become. And as a result, the world around me became my mirror of this loving experience. And as it is now 3:33, I just like to notice that I'm talking about love at 3:33. That's just a beautiful little observation. But anyway, I digress. I am brought back also to the recognition that, I am so proud to be in a leadership position with our international teaching team, our mentors, our instructors. And one of the really profound observations that I've made year after year is when I step into an environment where I get to meet people who are practicing and living with reconnective healing in their lives, I've noticed that my profound connection to these individuals, and many of them are on this call right now. I see many of your faces and your names. Think about how quickly we have, as a group, stepped into a state of such profound connection and mutual, beautiful love that we've shared with each other after really knowing each other for such a limited amount of time. And again, I want to remind you, it defies the natural arc of the process of stepping into love. When you ask someone on the street, tell me about the people that you love in your life, not including family members, people that you have grown to love. And you use the term grow to love, because there is a concept of that it's an evolution. It takes place over time, and there is usually validation for why that loving relationship emerges. But in the Reconnective Healing Experience, what we observe time and time again is that we step outside of the limits of time, and all of a sudden that arc just gets twisted, turned, and all of a sudden we find ourselves really so deeply connected to one another, outside of what we would normally expect. And I just offer to you once again, what would this world look like? What would this world look like if this is what we all continually and increasingly began to embody? If that was how we showed up? I keep this close to my heart because of the fact that I live in a country right now where, and I'm sure many of you know this, there's a lot of division and there's a lot of a sense of separation. And I just know from what I've learned in my experience, my very fortunate experience to have Reconnective Healing come into my life, that I know that there is hope, that this can transcend all divisions and separations. And so, and we're at the front line. If you're on this call and you're in this conversation, it's because this is what you called into your experience, because you were ready to carry that light. So I just wanted to mention that. So with that, let's move on to another really important concept, a philosophical concept that really guides us in our life philosophy and gifts us with an awareness, an expanded awareness of who we are and what we're capable of. And that is the concept of where we place our attention matters. We know, and many have spoken about this in this time and age, in the world of mindfulness, that our attention is the doorway to the here and now. It is the power of our attention that cannot be understated. Of course, we can apply it to the previous topics of wholeness and worthiness and love, because we can talk about when our attention is placed in these aspects of who we are, these things grow. But what's important to recognize is that our attention is what gives us access to living in the present and living in this moment, where instead of looking forward to the future to see what our wishes, desires, and hopes are, and instead of being focused on where we've been in our journey and our life story, reconnective healing as an experience takes us so directly into the moment that we learn that our attention is a powerful force. And, you know, in reconnective healing, we often also talk about how when we create from the here and now, and when we invite ourselves to experience our interactions with one another in this moment, we have to be mindful of where are we placing our attention. And we talk a lot in reconnective healing about love versus fear, because in the traditional sense of healing practices, there are many very long-standing practices of protecting ourselves when we interact in a healing exchange, and we use this concept of protecting ourselves from negative energy and protecting ourselves from what we might receive from the person that we're interacting with. I mean, you know, shame on us if we pick up something that somebody brought to us when they come in for a healing experience. But in reconnective healing, we remember and we recognize that when we release protection, which is really it's fear disguised as protection, we come back into an access point to that love that we just spoke of, and we allow ourselves to truly understand that that is the driving essence of who we are, and that's what drives our expanded healing experience. So again, I ask you, you know, what would this world be like if we chose to be more conscious of our attention? And that's the gift of reconnective healing, because it allows us to have a natural focal point that gives us an opportunity to be where we need to be right here in the moment as we evolve and expand. So let's talk also about, I talked about moving into the present here and now and releasing perhaps our desires and our hopes. And that brings us into the concept, the really core philosophical concept of releasing expectation. You know, expectation is in many ways a barrier. It's a self-imposed limitation on what our potential could be. And in reconnective healing, we often talk about releasing expectation to allow for infinite possibilities to arise. So yes, when we practice reconnective healing and we're in a healing exchange, we know that it's most expansive when we release the expectation of what someone is going to receive. But think about when we apply this to our lives, our daily lives, when we transcend and release expectations of how things are supposed to show up, how expansive do our possibilities and our potential, how more expansive do they grow from that releasing of those expectations? So we know that this is fundamental also to our understanding of what gifts lie in store for us when we take this into our everyday moments. So we also can't talk about reconnective healing without recognizing that we stand in a space of receivership. And it's something that we've learned through reconnective healing so profoundly. And it's ultimately about allowing ourselves to recognize that we are here to receive the flow of the energy, light, and information that is ready to be invited in to our here and now. And while the concept of sending healing or sending love or sending positive energy is often, I would say, romanticized as an act of giving, we forget that when we send, we actually, or when we believe we are sending or we attempt to send, we're actually reinforcing the idea that someone else is separate and is needing to receive something from you that they don't already possess. And it unfortunately reinforces that there is a gap or separation between you and them that needs to be overcome, that needs to be, traveled, and it needs to be, a leap needs to take place to get from there to here or here to there. And again, when we go back to our recognition of the holographic reality of our existence, then we start to invite the experience for others to recognize that they are also receiving and sharing in the receiving of energy, light, and information as we experience it ourselves. And it's so fundamentally important, I believe, to our way of life to recognize that we are always in a state of receiving, and we can invite others to recognize that themselves as well. And I really believe that we are all meant to continue in our exploration of our awareness. And I want to encourage each and every one of you to stay in your wonder of it all. I said early on that that the concept of knowingness is really about recognizing that there is an expansive truth to who we are that we can recognize. But even though knowingness implies this expansive awareness, it doesn't imply that it's finite. There is always room for continued growth and expansion. So when we think about knowingness, remember that it's the experience of receiving information that is already part of our deep awareness beyond the thinking mind. It's an awareness that has already existed deep within your essence. It's recognizing that perfect fit. Often when I've had experiences or those lights have gone off in my head where I have that knowingness kind of moment, it's often a feeling of something that just fits so perfectly within the context of who I am that there is just ultimate clarity. And so those are, to me, those are moments where that deeper perspective, that broader perspective, that intelligence that pervades the universe, that is part of who we are, just naturally fits into the mold of who we are, and we have those moments. So I know we need to leave some time for our life leaders to maybe reflect with you on some of the thoughts that I've brought to you today. I really want to just say to each and every one of you, congratulations on choosing to be part of this community. Congratulations, and I rejoice for you that you have found your community. You are not here by accident. And we are so excited to share, and I personally have been incredibly thrilled and honored to share everything that's kind of just streaming through me right now regarding this topic. And ultimately, it is about remembering that this Reconnective Healing Experience that we all love to share with you is something that is so much bigger than a moment. It's so much bigger than an exchange. It is truly our gift in our awareness of how we can show up in our life path. So I think I want to give you guys some time because we have some amazing life leaders in this room today. And so, Cecilia, is there anything that we need to do? I mean, I'd be happy to hear anybody's thoughts, but I don't want to cut in to their time.
You just speak so eloquently and so beautifully. It's just been gorgeous. Thank you so much for sharing our live and learn with us. Yes, I'm happy to introduce our life leaders. Today we have Ida Balderman-Plesnick, Terry Larkin, and Sandy Krieger. Ladies.
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Hello, everybody. It's so nice to be with you again. And Rob, I'm so grateful for you to say this magical word that I just wrote down, because for me, it dawned at the last few sentences that you said. It's about remembering. It was like, oh my God, if we are speaking about this multidimensionality and this gift that is placed for us in this space-time, in this our life experience, isn't it like stepping in our own remembering of how to be?
That's it.
And I was just amazed. And you said that. You said this magic word, and it so resonates with me. What do you think, Sandy? How does that remembering apply to your life, to your practice of reconnective healing?
Well, I have a saying that I tell myself, remember to remember. And reconnective healing helps me do that. I really loved how Rob explained it. I never heard it put this way, about how, we grow to love people. And my knowingness in this community, my knowingness continues to evolve and grow, as Rob talked about, at a faster rate since I've been in this community. But one thing that I just loved when he said, that you do just love. You don't have to grow to love. That was just beautiful to me. And it's kind of an awakening. How about you?
One of the things that I keep thinking, and he was going through the different, components of reconnective healing. And each time he did, I could just put myself into that place of wholeness that he started out with, and thought, that state of wholeness is where we are. And I love the way you phrase it, that says, we are already whole. We are not deficient. We are perfect. We are equal and connected. And I think one of the things of my favorite parts that you were talking about a little bit is when you said we're being love, because, that's one of the things that, interesting enough, just recently I did a distance healing with a gal that lives in Portland, Oregon, and I thought, I need to introduce her to Barbara. But anyway, and I was doing a distance healing for her, and we had just had a conversation before and after, like we always do, but she's not someone I know. And that's exactly what she said. Oh my goodness, I just feel like you've put me in this place of being love. And she said, how did you do that? Because that's not my world right now. And so she was feeling that love. And I think that is a key component of reconnective healing, and why, as you put it, that we're not having to teach ourselves how to love. It is just arising. I liked that word that you used, Rob, where you just said, it is arising, and it arises in us when we're doing a healing, when we're talking in a group like this, when and we begin to feel that as well. What do you think, Ida? I can see you're bursting with something to say.
Yes, and I see Rob is still having his mic on, so I'm really curious. I had this idea, sometimes you see, as a practitioner, you see the client as a whole, but then the client comes, and this gap between you seeing him whole and his not seeing himself whole, or the client seeing himself as lack of something, sometimes gives this client a feeling that they are causing this unworthiness, or this responsibility to themselves. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Sometimes the client has a feeling that he didn't do enough, and he feels responsible for that lack of own consciousness. And this is sometimes like a guilt trip from the client toward the practitioner. Do you relate to that? Do you have any kind of...
Are you talking about after the experience, or they're arriving?
Before, where they're arriving.
Yeah, and that's it. Is that we have this notion in our ordinary mind, our ordinary perception of who we are, we often see ourselves as lacking, separate from others, limited in some way, unworthy in other ways, and what we stand to do for others is to view them in a whole new light. And as a psychologist, we often believe as a psychologist that our role is to kind of help guide them there through a process, getting them. And I see Sandy nodding her head as a therapist. You know that it's not something you expect in the first few sessions. You know, it's something that you might work years to arrive at a sense of worthiness and wholeness. And what's so beautiful is that we stand in a place through this experience of reconnective healing, we stand in a place that we can just simply by our presence and by our attention to the truth of who they are, invite them to jump over that gap and to have that just dissolve. And I know that many of you have had experiences with people in reconnective healing where you saw someone with tears streaming down their eyes when they felt a sense of worthiness and wholeness that just they didn't know where it came from. They don't know why all of a sudden they feel this welling up from within them. And so that's the true opportunity that exists for all of us.
You know, the other thing is when you made the comment about as your title of everything I learned in kindergarten, and I just had to smile because as a teacher I used to use this and I used it in my education evenings with my parents and talking about how all of those qualities that are mentioned in that are ones that are one of the most important things about learning to love learning. And this is it's the same corollary. You're learning to love not only what the experience brings out the love in you, but it brings out the love in everyone else. And the attention is, we put our attention on to where our whole thought and being goes in such a natural way. That's that state of wonder that we can put ourselves in such a beautiful way in that and stay in that awe of the experience of experiencing the love coming through you and not to say but including the people that are around you. It's just beautiful. And I just love the way you put it together. And I just wanted to mention that I could, as an educator, I really can identify with people lacking the feeling that they are whole or that there's worthiness issues. And that's one of the beautiful components of reconnective healing that I think is so important for all of us to understand and to be, part of. Is just beautiful. It's just beautiful. It shapes our lives in amazing ways. Sandy, what do you? I'm sure that you're thinking along the lines of
all three of you are dealing with children and schooling, right? I'm sorry. I just want to say, because not everybody knows, and to me it's so interesting that all three of you is dealing with kids and education.
Yeah.
So
yes,
this
is true.
This topic is so perfect for you. And yes, Andy, please tell us your experience.
Well, I just wanted to bring up, beautiful girls. I love everything you've said. I just wanted to bring up something that Rob said too, that for everybody here in the community, is he talked about how reconnective healing came into his life at a time where I don't know if I want to say he needed it or he, was at a
right time.
Where he was yearning for something. And I can say that for myself as well. I had done Reiki like many of you, and I had this feeling like, I almost was like a couple of times, I was like, what? What? And that was shortly before I came into contact with Dr. Pearl. So I'm wondering, Terry and Ida, if you had that as well. I'm sure that everybody here can relate to that. So did that happen with you?
I was thinking parallelly when Rob was mentioning that, but I have really troubles to make this, to see the distinction between what was before, and I just became freshly mom, and being a mom for a woman is such a big turmoil. So it all connected with that. So to me, since I'm a mother, everything changed. But since I'm the mother, I also reconnective healing frequencies came into my life. So to me, it's the whole big package, and I don't really relate to what was before. But I'm on the quest. I am a natural researcher, so I love this part of expansion. For me, there's always more that I'm so yearning for, and my heart sings when I can mix and match and introduce and integrate. And it's always reconnective healing frequencies that just put like wrapping to everything that I do. So it does integrate with everything. It's a lifestyle.
What a beautiful time to come into your life.
Beautiful, beautiful.
I would have given in my life as a new mother.
Yeah, I think all of our lives. And, for me, it wasn't that anything was wrong in my life at that point in time, but I had been searching, and like Rob talks about, but I had been searching for the meaning of healing. And the interesting thing was I found out that it's the whole reconnective healing environment that drew me in, and not just the topic of the physical healing, even though I thought that maybe where I was headed, but it actually opened up what fit with what I'd already learned. But I also knew that there isn't an end. We're still expanding. I'm still expanding. I know everyone is. And when you wrap it inside and let it expand, putting our attention on the frequencies has just opened a world that has helped the expansion. And it happens at the most amazing times for me. And some of them have been during reconnective healing sessions where you feel that love that Rob was describing just pouring out. And you're going, I don't hardly know this person. And yet you just felt it pouring out of you. And to me, that's a gift for myself, and a gift that I cherish, absolutely cherish the experience that arose from those times that I've put that into the interconnectivity with people. And that interconnectivity is such an important component that takes a long time for people to understand. And I'm sure we're all still expanding on that as well, and understanding, what interconnectivity actually really comprises, because it's huge. And it's also every aspect of our life, every aspect. And
everyone, you are just so fabulous. This conversation is just, the door is open, and it's hard to tell everybody that it's time to say goodnight.
It's already there.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for all of your wonderful sharing. The conversation is not over. Go to the Reconnective Life Community Facebook page and keep chatting, and join us again next time. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much for your
attention. Thank you so much, Rob.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Enjoyed it.
Bye. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, Rob. It was beautiful.
My pleasure. And so good
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Celia.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here.
Everyone, Terry, that was excellent.
We can feel all of you.
Yes.
Yes.
Amazing, everybody.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, everyone.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Love y'all.
Bye.
Bye, Rob.
Bye now.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Cecilia.
Bye.
Love to see all of you.
I got you all.
I know.